Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So as requested by you, I've created a predicted paper for the IGCSE Edexcel Maths A Foundation paper, which is going to be held in November on the 5th and 7th. This is a prediction paper for paper 1. So I looked at the trend of topics that came in the past paper starting from 2018 till 2025. Based on the trend, I feel like these topics have a higher chance of coming in the paper. But obviously, there's no guarantee that the exact same thing will come as I've predicted. So I would still recommend you to practice the topics that are not included in this paper so that in case any of that topic comes, you know how to solve it. Based on the trend of the topic, it was easy to figure out like which topics most commonly come, whereas there's some which like tend to change. You will also notice that in this predicted paper and the past papers if you have practiced a good number of those. So let's start with this one and you can get a better idea of like what topics I think would come. I'm also attaching a download link for that in the description below so that if you want to practice this document, you can just download and practice using that. So the first question I think would be about rounding, place values, simplifying ratios, percentages, and fractions, like a mixture of all of these. So based on the trends of the topics that come in the first question, I believe this has a very high chance of coming for the first question. So the table shows the average number of spectators per match for each of 6 Spanish football teams in one season. Which team had the lowest average number of spectators per match? So you just have to see which team has the smallest number, and we can see that it's going to be Sevilla. Then write the number 65,731 correct to the nearest thousand. So 5 is the thousands place, so we rounded based on the hundreds place. Hundreds is 7, which is 5 and above. So 65 becomes 66,000. Then write in the value of 6 in the number 38,699. So for that, 6 is the hundreds place, so that's going to be 600. Then in one match, Sevilla played Valencia. In the match, Sevilla had 8 shots on target and Valencia had 12 shots on target. And Valencia had 12 shots on target. We have to write the ratio 8 is to 12 in its simplest form. So you have to see which times table 8 and 12 come in. Both come in the 4 times table. So if we divide 8 by 4 and 12 by 4, that gives us 2 and 3. So 2 is to 3 is your ratio in its simplest form because 2 and 3 don't come in either times table, so we cannot further simplify it. Then the same match, Valencia had 72% possession of the ball. Write 72% as a fraction in its simplest form. So 72% firstly as a fraction is going to be 72 divided by 100. Remember, to convert a percentage into a fraction, you just write that number as a numerator and the denominator is always going to be 100. Simplify this, 72 and 100 come in the 2 times table, so that's going to be 36 over 50. We can again further simplify it by dividing it by 2, which is going to be 18 over 25. Since 18 and 25 don't come in the same times table, so we cannot further simplify it, and this would be your final answer. Then we can get a bar chart. So the bar chart shows information about the number of international students who studied in each of 5 countries in 2019. In which of these 5 countries did the greatest number of international students study? So we can see that's Canada. Then write down the number of international students who studied in Australia. So in Australia, based on the scale, it's going to be 420. So 420,000 because these are in thousands, so 420,000. The number of international students who studied in Japan was more than the number of international students who studied in Spain. How many more? So in Japan, we have 210,000, and in Spain, we have 120,000. So when you subtract the two, we get 90,000. So it's going to be 90,000. Then in 2019, the number of international students who studied in France was 340,000. Draw a bar on the bar chart to show this information. So for 340,000, this is going to be your bar. Then you can get a pictogram. It says 40 people were asked to name their favorite type of holiday. The pictogram gives information about the number of these people who said each of city break or beach or walking. So how many of these people said beach? So if you look at the key, one complete like big square with 4 squares inside is equal to 4 people. So for beach, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 complete squares, and then a half. So that's going to be 4 times 3 plus 2. So that's 14. Once again, 3 complete big squares. So that's 4 times 3 because each one of these is equal to 4, and this is going to be 2 because it's half of it. So 4 times 3 plus 2, 14. Then 4 people said cruise, 9 people said skiing. Show this information on the pictogram. So if 4 people said cruise, we just draw one big square. And then for skiing, there are 9 people. So we draw 2 big squares. And then we draw 1/4 like this. Because it's saying 9 people. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 plus 4, 8 plus 1, 9. One person from the 40 people asked is selected at random. Find the probability that this person said city break. So for city break, let's find the number of people. That's 4. And that's 3. So that's 7 people. So total number of people given are 40. So the probability is going to be 7 out of 40. That is your answer. Next, you can get a question about writing, numbers as words or figures, depending on what they're asking. They can ask you to order decimals or even negative integers or just whole numbers, rewriting a fraction as a decimal or vice versa, and then rounding. So it says write the number 2051 in words. So that's going to be 2051. Write the number 1668 correct to the nearest thousand. That's going to be 2000. Why? Because as I told you, the thousands place is rounded based on the number in the hundreds place. And the hundreds place, we have 600. 600 is more than 500, which means we will round up. So 1668 rounded up is going to be 2000, correct to the nearest thousand. Then write 5/8 as a decimal. So you just divide 5 by 8, and that is equal to 0.625. You can just directly use your calculator for this. Then write these numbers in order of size. Start with the smallest number. So we can see that the ones place is the same for all of them. So let's compare the tens place. For the tens place, this and this have the smallest number, which is a 0. So now we look at the hundreds place to see which one is the smallest out of these. So obviously 2.008 is smaller because over here hundreds is 0 and here it's 8. So 2.008 is the smallest. Then we get 2.081. Now after that, the remaining numbers, we look at the tens place. So tens place is 8, 8, and 8 for all 3 of them. So we check the hundreds place now. 2.8 would be the smallest because it will just have 0, 0, 0, 0, and 0. Like there's nothing else. Whereas in 2.803, there's a 3 for the thousands place, which means it's still bigger than 2.8. So we have 2.8 over here. Then we have 2.803, and the biggest number is 2.83. So in these type of questions, when they're asking you to order decimals, compare the place values for each. If there's the same place value for the given numbers, look at the next place value and then arrange them accordingly. Then write 25.78621 correct to 2 decimal places. So 7 and 8 are our 2 decimal places, which means we'll round the second decimal place based on the number in the third decimal place. Third decimal place is 6, which means we'll round 8 up. So it's going to be 25.6. 25.79. If 6 was less than 5, we would round it down, so it would just be 25.78. Then find the square root of 1,296. You just directly use your calculator. And square root of 1,296 is 36. That's how you solve this. Then you can get a question on sequences and patterns. So I've noticed that the paper that is held in January, that has more questions on patterns like these. The one in October, November is just like a simple one. I'll show you that. I included that one as well. This is the one I've noticed in the October, November one. But once in the November one, something like this came. So I thought I'll add this question just in case they give it this time as well. Even though in May, June, like for the foundation, they didn't give it, but like there's no harm in practicing just one question. So it says here's a sequence of patterns made from identical pentagons. Work out the number of pentagons in pattern number 4. So let's see how the pattern is being created. So in the first pattern, we have 2 pentagons, then we have 6, then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we added 4, and then we again added 4. So which means to get the 4th pattern, we will do 10 plus 4, and that's 14. So we will have 14 pentagons in the 4th pattern. How did you work out your answer? We noticed that they're adding 4 to each pattern. They are adding 4. So you just find the common difference like I did. I subtracted 6 from 2, 10 from 6, and we notice that 4 is being added to each pattern. A different sequence of patterns is made from identical hexagons. The rule below can be used to find the number of hexagons in each pattern of the sequence. We multiply the pattern number by 5 and subtract 1. So we have to work out the number of hexagons in pattern number 7. So we times it by 5 and then subtract 1. So that is 35 minus 1, which gives us 34. Then a pattern in this sequence has exactly 59 hexagons. Work out its pattern number. So we use the same equation, but now we have the final answer. We have to figure out the pattern number. So let's call the pattern number x. So 5 times x minus 1. So first we do 59 plus 1. We're doing the reverse now because we need to find the pattern number, not the number of hexagons. So that's 60. And then we, instead of multiplying by 5, we divide by 5, which is 12. So the pattern number is 12. Then here are the first 4 terms of a number sequence: 5, 12, 19, 26. Write on the next term of the sequence. So this is the other type of question that you can get for sequences and pattern. This one is simpler compared to the previous one because in that one, they can still make it slightly difficult, but this one is more straightforward. So to write the next term of the sequence, we see what is the common difference like we did in the previous one. So 5 plus 7 is 12, 12 plus 7 is 19, and 19 plus 7 is 26, which means 26 plus 7, which is going to be 33. That is the next term of the sequence. How did you work out your answer? You subtract consecutive terms, or like we noticed that we're adding 7 to each consecutive term. The sequence is adding 7 to each term. So if you notice, like the question was pretty much the same. It's just that it looks different. In that one, they gave you like a figured pattern. Over here, it's just a number pattern. But the main thing was still the same. It wasn't something very complicated or like different or something that you haven't seen before. Then calculator question where you just have to like put the equation in the calculator and solve and write all the figures that come on the calculator display. This always comes. So we just put this equation in the calculator and see what we get. So 2.5 plus 3.6 divided by 12.7. And then we add that to 8.2 divided by 5 times 3.6. And that gives us 0.9358705162. Remember to write all the figures on your calculator display. Just don't lose these 2 marks by just writing some figures. You have to write all of the figures. Then write your answer to part A correct to 3 significant figures. So in this, 9, 3, and 5 are our 3 significant figures, like the first 3 significant figures. So 5 will be rounded based on 8, which is the number right next to it, like on the right-hand side. So since 8 is greater than 5, we round 5 up. So that's going to give us 0.936. This is our answer correct to 3 significant figures. Remember that the 0 before the decimal, that's not counted as a significant figure. The significant figure starts with 9. That's why 0 is not like, in this significant figures. It wasn't 0.94 or 0.93. It was 0.936 because 936 are the significant figures. Then fractions, this is something that also always comes. It says show that 3/10 divided by 1/4 equals to 6/5. So I chose this question because in this one they gave one for division and subtraction, which is something that kids most commonly get confused with. So in division, we always take the reciprocal of the second fraction and turn division to times. So it becomes 3/10 times 4/1. Reciprocal means flipping the fraction. So when you flip it, you're swapping the numerator with the denominator. So this is now going to be 3 times 4 divided by 10 times 1. 3 times 4 is 12, 10 times 1 is 10. Simplify it, both come in the 2 times table, so that's going to be 6/5. That's your answer. Then show that 5/6 minus 3/4 equals to 1/12. So when we're subtracting or adding fractions with unlike denominators, we have to make the denominators equal first. So to make the denominators equal, we can multiply the first fraction by 4 and the second fraction by 6. This way, both the fractions will have a denominator of 24. So it's going to be 20/24 minus 18/24. That's going to be 2/24, which can be simplified to 1/12 because 2 and 24 both come in the 2 times table. If you want to make the common denominator 12 as well, that's also fine. You can multiply the first fraction by 2 and the second fraction by 3. That also works. As long as your denominator is the same, you can multiply both the fractions by any number, but you have to make sure that you're multiplying the numerator by those numbers as well, not just the denominator. Then write 39/150 as a percentage. So to write a fraction or a whole number or a decimal as a percentage, we will always multiply it by 100, not divide, multiply. So 3900 divided by 150 is going to give us 26. So 26% is your answer. Then there are 30 dogs staying in some boarding kennels. 12 of the dogs are brown. What fraction of the dogs in the boarding kennels are not brown? Give a fraction's simplest form. So if 12 are brown, not brown are going to be 30 minus 12. And then we divide it by 30 because that is the total number of dogs. So that's going to be 18/30. They want the fraction's simplest form. That's going to be 3/5. Both 18 and 30 come in the 6 times table, so that's why we divided by 6, and that gives us 3/5. That is your fraction in simplest form. Then we have algebra. So for algebra, you will get like questions on collecting the like terms, you will get expanding brackets, then solving one-step equations or multi-step equations. You will also get indices. You will get questions on solving and factorizing a quadratic equation. You could get a question on changing the subject, but like obviously like easy level questions because it's foundation, not higher. So for this one, simplify 2e minus 3f plus 4e minus 7f. This is an example of collecting like terms. For this, you have to identify the like terms. So 2e and 4e are like terms. 3f and 7f are like terms. So 2e plus 4e minus 3f minus 7f. 2e plus 4e is 6e, minus 3f minus 7f is minus 10f. So this is your final answer. We cannot further simplify it because e and f are different variables, so we cannot subtract them. Then expand and simplify. So this is an example of expanding a single bracket. So we multiply 5 with 4x and 3, and then we multiply the negative 1 with 3x and negative 1. If there's no number written like before a bracket, but there's a sign, like for example, if it's plus or minus, that means there's a 1 over here. So you're multiplying negative 1 with 3x and negative 1. So 4 times 4x plus 4. So 5 times 4x plus 5 times 3, then minus 1 times 3x, and then minus 1 times minus 1. 20x plus 15 minus 3x plus 1, because minus times minus is plus and minus times plus is minus. Collect the like terms again. So 20x minus 3x and 15 plus 1. That's 17x plus 16. And that is your fully simplified answer. Then they can ask you to factorize an expression. So in factorization, you have to see what is the highest common factor between the given terms. So we know 4 is 2 times 2, and then there's a p. 6 is 3 times 2, then there's a p and a q. So if we notice, we have a common factor of 2 and we have a common factor of p. These are the common factors. We only take 1, 2 common. We don't take both the 2's common from 4p. So that's going to give us 2p as the common factor, which is outside. Inside the bracket, we'll have the remaining terms. That's going to be 2 plus 3q. This is how you factorize an expression by taking the greatest common factor common. Then simplify 5c times d. So you just multiply them, and it's going to be 5cd. When you're multiplying different variables, you just write them next to each other. You cannot, change the power or like something. It's just going to be 5cd. That's it. Then x plus 5 equals to 12. X is going to be 12 minus 5, which is 7. Either you use trial and error to figure out the value of x, or you can just move the 5 to the other side, and instead of being added to 12, you subtract it from 12. You do the opposite thing. So 12 minus 5, and that is 7. Then 9y equals to 36. We will divide both sides by 9 to find the value of y, and that is 4. Once again, we're doing the opposite. Either you use trial and error to figure out what y is going to be, or you can just move the 9 to the other side, and instead of getting multiplied to 36, it divides 36. Again, an example of collecting like terms. 8k minus 2k plus 5m plus 6m. First, you need to identify the like terms, then you need to write them together, and then you just add or subtract. So that's going to be 6k plus 11m. Simple as that. Transformation of shapes. So I've noticed this always comes in paper one. Like, I have a very strong feeling it will come in this one as well, because based on the trend for the November papers, even the January ones, transformation of shapes was in paper one. So I took 2 examples for this question. One is about rotation, then there's reflection, and then there's enlargement. These are the main ones that people tend to get confused with, so I just took those. So describe fully the single transformation that maps shape A onto shape B. So for shape A onto shape B, It's not a translation because in translation, the shape moves up or down or left or right, and it does not change the direction. Over here, the direction of shape A has changed. Like the same sides are facing each other, so it's not translation. It's not enlargement because the size is exactly the same, and it's not rotation as well. So what's left is reflection, because in reflection, like, when you see yourself in the mirror, your face is looking at your face. So the same side is facing each other. Exact same thing is happening over here as well. The same side is facing each other, which means it's a reflection. Now we have to figure out where the reflection line is going to come. So if we join two corresponding points, we can see that the distance between these 2 points is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So since there are 8 boxes between these 2 points, that means the mirror line, the line of reflection, is going to be halfway between them. So halfway is going to be over here at x equals to 1. 4 units before the line, 4 units after the line. So to describe this transformation that maps shape A onto shape B, it's a reflection in the line x equals to 1. Always remember that the reflection line is going to be right in the middle of the 2 corresponding points on the shapes. So reflection in the line x equals to 1. Then describe fully the single transformation that maps shape B onto shape C. Shape B onto shape C. Okay, now, once again, it's not an enlargement because the shape size is the same. It's not translation because the direction of the shape has changed now. It's not reflection because same side is not facing itself. So that leaves us with rotation. So we need to figure out what is the center of the rotation, and then what is the angle by which it's rotating, what is the direction in which it's rotating. Is it clockwise or anti-clockwise? Is it a 180-degree rotation? Is it a 90-degree rotation? So if you notice, it's going in this direction because if we rotate it 90 degrees, it's going to look like this. We know it's a rotation, we know it's 90 degrees, and it's clockwise. Now we need to know the center of the rotation. For the center, I believe it's the origin. Why? If I highlight the horizontal and vertical distance of this point from 0, 0, it's 5 units horizontally, 3 vertically. Now for shape C, same point, its horizontal distance is 3, vertical distance is 5. So in rotations, you need to know that if a shape is rotating 90 degrees, whether it's clockwise or anti-clockwise, what we do is we swap the horizontal and vertical distance of a point on the shape from the center of rotation to give the coordinates of the new shape. So over here, we can see that it was 5 horizontally and 3 vertically initially. So if we swap it and go 5 horizontally now, so if we swap it and go 3 horizontally instead of 5 horizontally and 5 vertically instead of 3 vertically, what we get is shape C. So we can see that the center is 0, 0, 90-degree rotation, clockwise direction. If you're someone who needs to practice more on transformation of shapes, I'm attaching a link above for a video that I've made just on transformation of shapes using past paper questions. Go through that and you'll have better understanding for the different type of transformations that can come for this topic. 90-degree rotation in clockwise direction about the center 0, 0. That is your answer. Now for this one, I chose enlargements, like I said before. Describe fully the single transformation that maps shape P onto shape Q. We can visibly see its enlargement because the size of the shape has changed. Now we need to figure out what is the scale factor of the enlargement and what is the center of enlargement. So for the scale factor, what you do is you just pick two corresponding sides. If I pick this and this, we just compare what is the distance or what is the length of those sides. So 2 units over here, 1, 2, 3, 6 over here. So for scale factor, you divide the new length by the old one, and that's going to be 3. So our scale factor is 3. Now for this center of enlargement, you connect corresponding points on both the shapes using straight lines. Like this, we draw another one. I think it's the origin over here. Yeah, the origin is your center of enlargement. So scale factor is 3 and the center is 0, 0. So enlargement by a scale factor of 3 about the center 0, 0. That's your answer. Then angle properties. So for this type of question, you need to know your basic angle properties, like what is the sum of angles on a straight line? What is the sum of angles around a point? Vertically opposite angles, then sum of angles in a triangle, quadrilateral, reflex angle, acute angle, obtuse angle, all of these things, you need to know about these. So it says ABC is a straight line and BCD is a triangle. Work out the value of x. So to work out the value of x, first we need to find this angle. So for that, we will subtract 93 and 42 from 180 first, because sum of angles in a triangle is 180. So that's going to give us 45. Then angles in a straight line equals to 180. So again, we do, which is angle x. That's going to be 180 minus 45, and that's 135. That is your angle x. P, O, R, O, S, O, and T, O are 4 straight lines. Work out the value y. So like I said, angles around a point equal to 360. So this is a 90 degrees. So it's going to be 360 minus 100 minus 114 and then minus 90. That is going to give us 56 degrees. Give a reason for your answer. Angles around a point add up to 360 degrees. That's how you solve this. Then angles and polygons. This is the other type of question you can get for angles. You can also get like, a question on triangles, or like, they can like divide one triangle into two triangles. Like you need to know your basic angle properties basically. Without those, you cannot solve them. For the polygon ones, you need to know your formula for the interior angle of a polygon. You need to know like the sum of interior angles of polygon. So I'll just write those over here in case you don't know, because they're not going to give you those in the formula sheet. Each interior angle is n minus 2 times 180 over n. And then sum of interior angles is going to be n minus 2 times 180. So you're trying to find each interior angle, you divide the sum formula by the number of sides, n being your number of sides. And if you're trying to find like the sum, you just do n minus 2 times 180. So over here, we have to find the value of x, which is like one of the angles. and they've given us the remaining angles. It's a pentagon, so the number of sides are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So n is 5. What you can do is you can find the missing angle by subtracting the given angles from the sum of angles. And for the sum of angles, you need to use the sum of interior angles formula to figure out that. So that's going to be 5 minus 2 times 180. That's 3 times 180. And that's going to give us 540 degrees. So to find x, we do 540 minus all of the given angles. So 119 minus 135 minus 67 minus 90. That equals 129 degrees. That is the value of x. Then you can get a question on scale drawing and bearings. So the accurate scale drawing shows the positions of two lighthouses, S and T. According to the scale of the drawing, 1 centimeter is equal to 2 kilometers. Find by measuring the bearing of lighthouse T from lighthouse S. So bearing of lighthouse T from lighthouse S is this angle. You always measure the angle from the north in clockwise direction. And since they're saying by measuring, so you need your protractor for this. You will use your protractor to measure the angle. It's obviously going to be greater than 90. So it's going to be like, I think, 110 or something like that. I'm just assuming. But like you cannot assume the value in the exam. You have to use a protractor to accurately measure the angle. And make sure that you write your angle as a 3-digit number. Like for example, if your bearing is 60, you write it as 060. You don't write it as a 2-digit angle. That's not going to give you full marks. A bearing is always written as a 3-digit number. A bearing is always written as a 3-digit number, not a 2-digit. Then a boat is on a bearing of 84 degrees from S. Now look, it's 3 digits, not 2. So make sure you write it like this. So it's on a bearing of 84 degrees from S and the boat is 13 kilometers from T. On the diagram, mark with the cross X the position of the boat, label the cross B. So from T, it's 13 kilometers away and the boat is on a bearing of 84 degrees from S. So once again, using your protractor, you will measure the angle of 84 from S and see where it comes. So 84 will come, I think, somewhere over here. And then you will measure a distance of 13 kilometers from T towards this line. So for that, obviously we cannot make a 13-kilometer long line over here, but we know 1 centimeter equals to 2 kilometers. So we do 13 divided by 2, which is 6.5 centimeters. So you will draw a line of 6.5 centimeters long from T towards this line. And this will be 6.5 centimeters. And then you will put a cross over here, and this will be point P. So that's how you will complete the diagram. Then they can ask you to find the LCM and HCF. So what you need to do is, in this one, it says A is 5 cubed times 7 cubed times 11 to the power of 6. And B is 5 to the power of 6 times 7 squared times 11 to the power of 4. We have to find the highest common factor of A and B. Give your answer as a product of powers of its prime factors. So A is 5 cubed times 7 cubed times 11 to the power of 6. B is 5 to the power of 6 times 7 squared times 11 to the power of 4. So both A and B have 5, 7, and 11. So let's write on the prime factors 5, 7, and 11. Now about the powers. They're asking us to find the highest common factor. So we need to see what is the common power. So between 3 and 6, obviously 3 is common because 6 can be split into 3 and 3. So the power of 5 is going to be 3. For 7, it's going to be 2. And for 11, it's going to be 4. So this is your highest common factor. You don't need to multiply these because it says give your answer as a product of powers of its prime factors. So this is where you stop. You don't need to further solve this. Then find the lowest common multiple of 45 and 70. So for this, you can either use the division method or the factor tree method. I personally prefer the division method. I'll show you how to use that in case you don't know it. So for the division method, we write 45 and 70, and then we try to figure out a number which divides both 45 and 70. So 45 and 70 both come in the 5 times table. So 45 divided by 5 is 9, and 70 divided by 5 is going to be 14. Now 9 and 14 don't come in the same times table. So 9 is divided by 9, which is 1. 14 comes down as it is, and then we divide 14 by 14, so that's 1. So the lowest common multiple, we multiply these numbers over here. So LCM is going to be 5 times 9 times 14, which gives us 630. That is your LCM. For the factor tree method, what we can do is we can split 45 into its factors, 9 and 5. 9 becomes 3 and 3. 70 is 7 and 10. 10 is 5 and 2. So 45 is 3 squared times 5, and 70 is 2 times 5 times 7. When using the factor tree to find the LCM, what we do is you write all of the prime factors, so 2, 5, 3. When trying to find the LCM using factor tree, what we do is we write all of the prime factors, so 2 times 3 times 5 times 7. Now for the powers, we choose the highest powers. So for 2, the highest power is 1, so that comes as it is. For 3, the highest power is 2, so it's going to be 3 squared. For 5, the highest power is 1, and for 7, it's also 1. So when you multiply these, that's 2 times 9 times 5 times 7, that's also 630. So as you can see, both the ways give the same answer. You pick the one that's easy for you to understand. There's also a third one, which is the Venn diagram method. So you can use that as well. But like pick the one that is the easiest for you to understand. Don't confuse yourself. And if someone needs to practice for HCF and LCM, I'm attaching a link above for that. In that video, once again, you'll come across different questions for this topic. Then drawing linear graphs. So this is like, I believe, one of the most scoring questions. Like you just have to create a table for the given values of x, which is from -1 to 4. Then put those value of x in the equation to find the corresponding values of y. Then plot your coordinates on the graph and connect them with a straight line. That's it. So what I'm going to do over here is I'm going to make your table over here. This is your x, this is y. So x is -1 to 4. So -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So y is 2x minus 3. So when you put -1, that gives us -5. When you put 0, that gives us -3. When you put 1, that gives us -1. Then when we put 2, that's going to give us 1. With 3, it's going to give us 3, and with 4, that's going to give us 5. So these are your values of x and y. Now we're going to plot these on the grid below. So when x is -1, so your horizontal axis is the x value and vertical axis the y value. So -1, -5. This. 0, -3. 1, -1. 2, 1. 3, 3, and 4, and 5. Now you just connect them with a straight line, and that is your graph of the equation y equals to 2x minus 3. Very scoring marks. Then two-way tables. So in this one, Pavel asked 60 people at an airport where they came from. All of the 60 people came from Europe or Africa or Asia. 9 people came from Africa. So let's mark that. So a total of 9 are from Africa. 14 females came from Europe. So we go to Europe and then female. 3 males came from Africa. So Africa, male. 16 of the 29 males came from Asia. So there are 29 males in total, and out of those 29, 16 are from Asia. Using this information, we have to complete the two-way table. So to find the male in Europe, we subtract 3 and 16 from 29 because this entire row adds up to 29. So Europe male is going to be 29 minus 16 minus 3. That's going to be 10. Then total Europe. So Europe total, that's going to be 10 plus 14, and that's 24. This is going to be 9 minus 3, which is 6. And 60 people are over here. That is the total number of people. So for total female, we do 60 minus 29, which is equal to 31. We can find the total number of people in Asia. So that's going to be 60 minus 24 minus 9, 27. And the female in Asia are going to be 27 minus 16, which is 11. So that's your answer. Then next you can get for algebra is evaluating equations and forming expressions. So for these type of questions, they can give you an equation or an expression. They can give you the value of some variables and ask you to find the value of one variable using that information. So over here, they want us to find the value of the expression. P is -6 and M is -2. So 2 bracket -6 whole square plus 3 bracket -2. -6 square is 36 because -6 times -6 is 36. And 3 times -2 is going to be -6. So 36 times 2 is 72. 72 minus 6 gives us 66. Then there's 6 eggs in a small box of eggs. There are 12 eggs in a large box of eggs. Alex buys G small boxes of eggs and H large boxes of eggs. He buys a total of T eggs. Write down a formula for T in terms of G and H. So total eggs are going to be 6G plus 12H. One small box has 6 eggs. So if there are G small boxes, the total eggs in small boxes are going to be 6G. And if there are 12 eggs in one large box, we have H number of large boxes, so 12H. So 6G plus 12H is the total number of eggs. Then we have standard form. So they can ask you to convert a standard form number into ordinary number or the other way around, or they can ask you to do a calculation. I chose the calculation one. So it says A is 4.2 times 10 to the power of -24 and B is 3 times 10 to the power of 145. Work out the value of A times B, giving your answer in standard form. So it's 4.2 times 10 to the power of -24 times 3 times 10 to the power of 145. That's going to be 12.6 times 10. And for the powers, since similar bases are being multiplied, we can add the powers. So 145 minus 24. That's going to give us 121 for the power of 10. They want the answer in standard form. This is still not standard form because in standard form, the decimal comes after the first non-zero digit. Right now, the decimal is after the second non-zero digit. So the decimal has to move one place to the left. So when you move it one place to the left, we add 1 to the power. So it's becoming 122 now. So 1.26 times 10 to the power of 122 is your answer in standard form. If you're someone who wants to practice questions for standard form, you can check out the topic playlist on my channel, which is for like IGCSE Edexcel Maths A. It is for higher, but like since you know questions for higher, so, as you know, some of the questions for higher and foundation are the same. So in that playlist, if you go to the standard form questions, you will come across a good number of questions to develop better understanding about standard form. Then we have again algebra, so you can get questions on inequalities and quadratic equations like I mentioned previously. So solve the inequality 5x minus 7 less than equal to. So solve the inequality 5x minus 7 less than equal to 2. So solving an equation and inequality are pretty much the same. The only difference is in the way you're writing your answer. So we're going to move 7 to the other side first, and that's going to give us 5x less than equal to 2 plus 7, which is 9. Then x is less than equal to 9 over 5. If you want to write it as a decimal, you can do that. If you want to leave it like this, you can even leave it like this. If you want to convert it into a mixed number, that's also fine. Either way, they'll give you the mark. And factorize y squared minus 2y minus 35. So for this, you can use the splitting the middle term, or you can use a quadratic equation, whichever you think is easy for you to use and like solve. What you can do is you can find factors of 35. Factors of 35 are 5 and 7 and 35 and 1. Now you have to pick that set of factors which when added or subtracted give us the middle term, which is 2. Obviously 7 minus 5 is 2, so we pick that. So you just replace negative 2y with negative 7y plus 5y. Because negative 7y plus 5y is equal to negative 2y. Now we split it into groups. The first two terms make one group, the last two terms make another group. So we factor these two groups separately. In the first group, we have y common. So y minus 7 comes in the bracket. And the second group, we have 5 common. So again, y minus 7 comes in the bracket. Now between y and 5, we have y minus 7 common. So y minus 7 bracket y plus 5. And this is your factorized answer. Then they're saying, hence solve y square minus 2y minus 35 equal to 0. So when it says hence, that means you have to use your answer from the previous part. So whatever factors you got from part A, you put them equal to 0. Why am I putting them equal to 0? Because if you compare the equations, it's the same equation, but now the equation is equal to 0, which means the factors are also going to be equal to 0 because the factors were derived from the equation. So now you put them separately equal to 0. And that's y equals to 7 and y equals to negative 5. So these are your values of y. Then they can give you an inequality question where they can ask you to make the inequality on the number line or like figure out the, what's it called, the values or the inequality from the given number line. Or they can ask you to write down the values of a variable based on the inequality. Like over here, it says n is an integer. Write on all the values of n such that then 3 but greater than equal to negative 2. So since negative 2 is included, n can be negative 2, it can be negative 1, it can be 0, it can be 1, it can be 2, but it cannot be 3 because n is less than 3. So we stop at 2. Then on the number line, represent the inequality y is greater than equal to 1. You draw a shaded circle at 1 because it's equal to. It's less than equal to. It's not like just less than. So less than equal to means that we go towards the left-hand side because the values of y are decreasing. They're not increasing. So this is how you represent the inequality on the number line. If it was less than, it would be an unshaded circle. Then you can get a question on ratios. One thing I would like to highlight over here is that like for word problems, it can be ratios, percentages, fractions, money problems, anything. So I couldn't like really incorporate all of that in this predicted paper because for word problems, they can give you anything. Like, it's like there's no fixed pattern for that. I tried to incorporate as much as I could, but for word problems, I would strongly recommend that you just practice more from like past papers so that like you know how to decipher a word problem, understand like what they're asking you to do, because in most cases children just get confused because they're not reading the question properly. So read the question properly for word problems, highlight the keywords, and understand what the question is asking you to do instead of just like coming to conclusions without reading it properly. So over here, it says Daniel, Gabrielle, and Hadley share some money in the ratio 3:5:9. The difference between the amount of money that Gabrielle receives and the amount of money that Hadley receives is 196 euros. We have to work out the money that Daniel receives. So we know the difference between the amount of money Gabrielle and Hadley are receiving. So if we create a ratio for Gabrielle, Gabrielle is going to be 5/9 plus 5 plus 3. That's going to be 5/17. Then for Hadley, that's going to be 9/17. So obviously the amount that is being shared between them, like the total amount that was divided, that's going to be the same like the initial amount. So the difference between Hadley's and Gabrielle's amount is 196. So 9/17 x. So 9/17 x minus 5/17 x equals to 196. X being the amount of money shared. So that's going to be 4x/17 equals to 196. We can find the initial amount. It's going to be 196 times 17 divided by 4. That is going to give us 833 euros. We have to find Daniel's share. So to find Daniel's share, that's going to be 3/17 times x being 833. So when you times that, that's going to give us 147 euros. That is your final answer. Then you can get indices and changing the subject. So you need to remember when you're multiplying similar bases, we add the powers. So it's going to be a to the power of 7 plus 4, which is a to the power of 11. Then when you're dividing similar bases, we subtract the power. So it's going to be 15 minus 3, which is w to the power of 12. Then when there's a power inside the bracket and outside the bracket, you multiply the powers. And the power gets distributed on the coefficient as well. So it's going to be 8 square times x to the power of 5 times 2 times y to the power of 3 times 2. So that's going to be 64 times x to the power of 10 times y to the power of 6. That is your final answer. So these are the 3 rules of indices that you need to be aware of. And also you need to know that anything to the power of 0 will always equal to 1. Always. Then make t the subject of c equals to t cube minus 8v. So right now c is the subject of the equation. We need to make t the subject. So to make t the subject of the equation, what you need to do is you need to isolate t on one side. So first I'm going to move 8v to the other side. So it's going to be c plus 8v equals to t cube. Now, right now, t cube is the subject, not t. So we cannot just stop over here. There's still another step. So to make t the subject, we will cube root c plus 8v, and that leaves t alone on the right-hand side. So t equals to cube root of c plus 8v. For us to get rid of the cube on t, we have to cube root the other side. So when you cube root the other side, the 3 on t disappears. So that's how you solve it. If it was a square, then you would just square root the other side. But since it's a cube, so that's why we cube rooted c plus 8v. Then the next question is about percentage profit. It says Sarah makes and sells mugs. One day she makes 150 mugs. Her total cost for making these mugs is £1,140. Of these mugs, 2/5 are small mugs, 32% are medium mugs, and the rest are large mugs. Here is Sarah's prices for selling each mug. She's selling all 150 mugs. We have to work out percentage profit. So let's do this step by step. We know what the total mugs are, which are 150. We know the cost of making these mugs, which is 1,140. Let's first find the number of small mugs, medium mugs, and large mugs. Small are going to be 2/5 of 150, which is equal to 60. Then medium are 32%. So 32 over 100 times 150. 48. Rest are large. That's going to be 150 minus 60 minus 48, which equals 42. So we have the number of small, medium, and large mugs. Now, let's find how much each costs. Now, let's find out how much she's earning from each. So she's selling the small for 8.50. So selling small. So we do 60 times 8.5. That's going to be 510 pounds. Selling medium. So she's selling the 48 mugs. So each mug is for 11.2. So 48 times 11.2. That's 537.6 pounds. And then for the large ones, she's earning 42 times 14.2, which is going to be 596.4. So this is how much she's earning. So percentage profit is your selling price minus cost price divided by the cost price times 100. So percentage profit, selling minus cost over cost times 100. So for selling, we add these 510 plus 537.6 plus 596.4 minus the cost 1,140 divided by 1,140, and then we times that by 100. So let's add what she's earning first. So 510 plus 537.6 plus 596.4. So 1,644. When we solve this, what we get is 44.2%. That is the percentage profit. They want the answer correct to the nearest whole number, so that's going to be 44%. That is the percentage profit that Sarah is earning from selling all 150 mugs. Then we have sets and Venn diagrams. So here's a Venn diagram. List the members of the set A. So set A has all of these numbers. So 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, and 15. Even the ones that are in the common region, they're a part of set A and set B. So when they ask you to write the members of set A, you will write all of the members. Then A intersection B. Upside down U is intersection, which is the common elements. So intersection, just the common elements. So common elements are 5 and 15. That's your answer. Then A union B complement. A union B complement means all of the elements not in A and B. So everything that's outside. So outside is 6, 8, 12, 14, and 16. So that is your answer. This is A, unit B, complement. Then area and perimeter, the diagram shows the front of a wooden door with a semicircular glass window. Julia wants to apply 2 coats of wood varnish to the front of the door, shown shaded in the diagram. 250 milliliters of wood varnish covers 4 meters square of the wood. Work out how many milliliters of wood varnish Julia will need, giving your answer correct to the nearest milliliter. So we have a rectangular wooden door and then there's a semicircular glass window inside it. She wants to put the wood varnish on obviously the wooden area, not the glass part. So we have to find the area of the door, subtract the area of the glass window from that to get the area of the shaded part. And then we need to figure out how much wood varnish will be needed for it. So area of door, that's going to be 2 times 0.75. So 2 times 0.75 is 1.5 meters square. Area of glass window, that's going to be pi r squared over 2. Area of circle is pi r squared, so semicircle is half of pi r squared. Diameter is 0.5, so radius is going to be half of 0.5, which is 1 over 4, which is also 0.25. Like you can write it as a decimal or a fraction. So we do pi times 0.25 squared over 2, which gives us 0.098 meter square. Now I find the area of the shaded region. That's going to be 1.5 minus 0.098. That equals 1.402 meters square. Now Julia wants to apply 2 coats of wood varnish. 250 milliliters of wood varnish covers 4 meters square of the wood. So we have 1.402 meters square. Work out how many milliliters of wood varnish Julie will need. So 4 meters square is for 250 milliliters. Let's use this information to figure out how much 1 meter square will require. 1 meter square will be 250 divided by 4. That's going to be 62.5 milliliters. That's for 1 meter square. So for 1.402, we times that by 62.5. That's 87.625 milliliters. Since she's going to put 2 coats, so for 2 coats, it's going to be 2 times 87.625, because 87.625 milliliters is just for 1 coat. So for 2 coats, it's going to be 175.25 milliliters. The answer correct to the nearest milliliters, that's going to be 175 milliliters. That is the amount of varnish Julie will need. Then we have SOHCAHTOA and Pythagoras. So in the major one, they gave a trapezium using Pythagoras and SOHCAHTOA and that. So I chose a triangle one, where they're splitting a triangle into 2 triangles, and using that, we're going to figure out the missing information. So ABC is a straight line. We can see that angle B is right angle, which means that this is also going to be a right angle. And they have given us the length of BD. They have given us the angle ADB, and they have given us length of DC. We have to work out the length of AC. So let me just highlight that. This. So first, if you look at the triangle BDC, we can use Pythagoras to figure out BC, because they haven't given us any other angles, so we can't use SOHCAHTOA. And then using SOHCAHTOA in triangle ABD, we can figure out AB. And then we add AB and BC to get the length of AC. So let's start with finding the length of BC. So that's going to be 19.3 squared equals to 12.6 squared plus BC squared. 19.3 is your hypotenuse, so that's why 19.3 squared equals to 12.6 squared plus BC squared. So 19.3 squared minus 12.6 squared, that's going to give us 213.73. We square root that. That's going to be 14.62 centimeters. Now to find the length of AB, we'll use SOHCAHTOA. So we have the adjacent because we have the length on which the angle lies, and we have to find the opposite. So we'll use tan. Tan of 20 equals to AB over 12.6. So 12.6 times tan of 20 equals to AB is going to be 4.59 centimeters. So AC is going to be 14.62, which is BC, plus 4.59, which is AB, and that gives us 19.2 centimeters, correct to the first decimal place. So that is the length of AC. So now we have a question on volume. So it says a diagram shows a container for water in the shape of a prism. The rectangular base of the prism shown shaded in the diagram is horizontal, and the container is completely full of water. Tua is going to use a pump to empty the water from the container so that the volume of the water in the container decreases at a constant rate. The pump starts to empty water from the container at 10:30, and at 12, the water level in the container has dropped by 20 centimeters. Find at which time all of the water has been pumped out of the container. So which means everything is out of the container, like it's empty. So the reason why I chose this question is because in the May-June 2025, they gave a very basic one where they were asking you to find the volume of it. They were asking you to find the density of a cylinder, I think, and they had given us the volume and like the height or the radius was missing, something like that. So that type of question has appeared like all alternatively, like if it comes in 1 year, then it comes like a year before that or something like that. So I thought like they wouldn't give you the same thing in October, November. So I chose a very different one where we have a prism and not like, a very simple shape like a cuboid or like a cylinder like that. So that's why I chose a prism for this one. So to find the volume of a prism, firstly, we need to find the area of the cross section, and we times it by the longitudinal length to get the volume. If you look at the cross section, we can divide the cross section into two shapes, which are rectangles. This is 30, this is 60. We can do 30 minus 85, which is going to be 55 over here. And this length is 40. So if you find the area of these two rectangles added up, that gives you the area of the cross section. And then we times that by 125, that gives us the volume of this prism. So let's start with doing that. So cross section area is going to be 60 times 30 plus 50 times 55 times 40. 4,000 centimeter square. So now volume is going to be 4,000 times 125, which gives us 500,000 centimeter cube. So the pump starts to empty water from the container at 10:30, and at 12, the water level in the container has dropped by 20 centimeters. So if it's dropped by 20 centimeters, that means the height is now going to be. So it says that the pump starts to empty water from the container at 10:30, and at 12, the water level in the container has been dropped by 20 centimeters. So if it has been dropped by 20 centimeters, this is where the water level is. So this part has been removed, which means we're only focusing on this part now. So 20 minus 60 is going to be 40. So this is now your height. This is your width, and this is your longitudinal length. So now if you find the volume of the remaining water, volume of water at 12. So at 12, the volume of the water is going to be 40 times 85 times 125, which is going to give us 425,000 centimeter cube. So to find the volume of the water that has been removed, we can subtract the volume of the container from the volume of the present water. So volume of removed water is going to be 500,000 minus 425,000, which is 75,000 centimeter cube. So if you notice, this started the pump at 10:30 and at 12, the height had dropped by 20 centimeters. So 75,000 was lost in 1.5 hours. So if it's taking 1.5 hours to get rid of 75,000 centimeter cube of water, for 425,000, it would be 1.5 divided by 75,000 times 425,000. That would give us the time to completely empty the tank. So that's going to be 8.5 hours. So they want to know the exact time at which all of the water has been pumped out of the container. So to 12, we add 8.5, which is going to give us 2030. That is the time at which the water tank will be completely empty. So to summarize, we start with finding the volume of the container. For that, we need the cross-section area. And then we times it by the longitudinal length, which is 125. So that gives us the volume of the container. Then we find the volume of the water at 12. So at that time, 20 centimeters has been dropped for the water level. So now for the cross section, it's just one rectangle. So the rectangle times 125, that gives 425,000. When you subtract the two, we get the volume of the water that has been removed from the container in 1.5 hours. So in 1.5 hours, 75,000 centimeter cube of water was removed. We need to figure out how long it will take for 425,000 centimeter cube to be removed from the tank so that's completely empty. So for that, we do 1.5 divided by 75,000, which gives us the time it would take to remove 1 centimeter cube of water from the tank. So we need times that by 425,000. That gives us the time it would take to remove 425,000 centimeter cube of water. Once we have that time duration, we add that to 12 because they want the exact time at which the tank would be empty. So that's 2030. So if you just give 8.5 hours, they would not give you full marks because they want the exact time, not the time duration it would take for the tank to be empty. And then we have a question on probability. So it says some members of a library were asked to name the type of book that they each like to read the best. One of the members is chosen at random. The table shows information about the probability of the type of book that this member answered. So we have comedy, romance, mystery, and thriller. 48 members answered comedy books. Work out how many of the members answered mystery books. So first, let's find the value of x. Remember, to find the value of x, you will add up all of the probabilities and put it equal to 1. So 1 equals to 0.24 plus 0.40 plus 3x plus x. That's going to be 1 equals to 0.64 plus 4x. 1 minus 0.64 equals to 4x, which equals to 0.36. Divide that by 4. That is going to be 0.09. So we have the number of members who answered comedy books. So 48 over the total would be the same as 0.24. So which means total number of books are going to be 48 divided by 0.24. And that gives us 200. So if the total books are 200, how many members answered mystery books? So for mystery, so mystery is going to be 3 times 0.09 and then times 200. You multiply the probability, which is 3x, so 3 times 0.09 with the total number of members. That's going to be 54. So 54 members answered mystery. And then we can get a question from mean from group data. This is also a question that very commonly appears. So the table gives information about the speeds in kilometers per hour of 80 motorbikes as each pass under a bridge. So we have to write on the model class. So model class is going to be that class where the frequency value is the highest. And that's over here. So your answer is going to be S is less than equal to 80, but greater than 70. That is your model class. Remember, you will not write the frequency value, you will write the interval, not the frequency value. Then we have to work out an estimate for the mean speed of the motorbikes as they pass under the bridge, giving your answer correct to 3 significant figures. So for this, you need to know the midpoint of the intervals first. So midpoint is going to be 40 to 50 is 45, then 55, 65, 75, and 85. Once we have the intervals, you will make another column where you will multiply the midpoint with the frequency. So f times x, this is x. So it's going to be 45 times 10, 55 times 16, 19 times 65, 75 times 23, and then 85 times 12. So mean is going to be 45 times 10, 450, plus 55 times 16, which is going to be 880, 19 times 65, 1235, 75 times 23, 1725, and then 85 times 12, which is 1020. Divide that by the total frequency, which is given as 80. So now we just solve this to get the mean value. 66.4. They want the answer correct to 3 significant figures, so 66.4 kilometers per hour. That is your mean value. Remember to find the midpoint of the class intervals, times that by the frequency, then add that up and divide by the total frequency. And with that, we're done with this predicted paper. If you have any questions or confusions, please leave a comment below and I'll help you out. And if you're someone who needs practice for other topics, please check out the topic playlist and do practice past papers for like word problems, especially because like I could include a lot of word problems because like it's very hard to predict what type of word problems they will give. So for that, I would suggest just do like a good number of word problems from past papers, and it's not going to be hopefully it's not going to be very hard because the resets are never extremely hard. They're easier than the June ones. So since the May June one came out to be pretty easy this time, so hopefully the reset would also be easy.